We don't have anyone around, and I was by myself and Oscar. He wouldn't go with others, he wouldn't go and make new friends. He's a bit hesitant. So I said to them, like, you know, he's like that. He wouldn't talk to everybody. He will just sit and play with his cars and take hours and hours. He can sit by himself, and he doesn't actually get involved with new activities. I had discussion with Kat.
Sometimes he struggled with routine, and it could be, and sometimes he was very stuck in routine where he just wanted the same thing, and then if something had changed, he didn't cope with that change. And at first, when I had to use Epic, I was kind of like, oh, what is this? All it was any child that I felt needed a little bit of extra support, you'd fill out some forms, do some observation on children, and then you'd get in contact with Kim, who plays a big part of it, and she's been amazing.
I oversee the rollout of our early intervention services program.
And then she told me, why don't you come on and join the meeting with Jacinta?
So I'm here to actually help the educators to work with their family.
And then I lead the meeting just as a conduit between everyone in the room, ensuring that the conversation is child-focused. It's a bit of a thing to throw around, you know, that the parent is the expert on their own child. We really want to make that real and tangible for parents and for families.
Coming here is looking at the teachers and telling them my difficulties and finding the answers, all the answers. It's like making new friends. It's like the best thing.
Jacinta's at the stage of assessing Oscar and talking to Mum about whether he is school ready.
The really important thing, it's one of the things that really comes out from it, is that the families are able to identify where their child needs support.
They're the only way I feel like, you know, helping me through all this difficult time when I was by myself with Oscar. And I wouldn't, because at that time I didn't have anyone.
I know Mum's on her own here with Oscar, and you know, so that just led us to do the best we can for Oscar.
All I know is these guys are helping me. They're friends to me. Hi, my name is Meena Rani, and I'm Oscar's mum.
And what's your name? Who is this?
Oscar.
Oscar! Oscar!
I'll do whatever it takes, you know, for Oscar.
High five?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Oscar. Oh,
Good boy.
Could be a butterfly, spread my wings in silent cry. Fly, fly away, lit up in the morning sun. Set my dreams on rays of white.
The next train arriving at Airport West has been delayed. The next train arriving at Airport West has again been delayed. Again, the train ain't coming, people.
I could be a butterfly, touch the world before I die.
Welcome everyone to the special meeting of Council for the 30th of January 2020, which I now declare open. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I would respectfully like to acknowledge the land on which we meet, that of the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I'd like to extend a very warm, especially on today, welcome to members of the public gallery who have joined us tonight, as well as those who at home are watching on the internet. As well as being live streamed, the video recording of this meeting will be available on the website, so attendees in the gallery are advised that their presence may be recorded. I also ask that mobile phones be switched to silent mode during the meeting, please. So if you're wondering online why we're holding this meeting on a different date and time to our normal council meeting, it's because this is a special council meeting that has been called to consider an urgent item of business in relation to a heritage listed tree at Newmarket Railway Station. This is a matter that cannot wait until our first scheduled meeting for the year on the 11th of February. Special meetings do run slightly differently to ordinary council meetings in that there is only one item on the agenda and there is no opportunity for public questions from the gallery. However, I'm sure that following the meeting, if you wish to stay around for questions, councillors are often around. Now, councillors, I do have received apologies from Councillor Gauchimirici and Councillor Nation for tonight's meeting. Can I please have a motion that Councillor Gauchimirici and Councillor Nation's apologies be noted? Moved Councillor Marshall, second Councillor Lawrence. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Now, councillors, I haven't received any conflicts of interest. However, does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest on the one item on the agenda tonight? No. In that case, we will move to the report. 4.1, the report listed for tonight's agenda is titled Newmarket Station Proposed Tree Removal. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Cusack.
Pardon me, Mayor, I'd like to move the motion in line with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Marshall. Councillor Cusack, would you like to speak to the motion?
Right, well, we don't stand anymore, and thank you, Mayor. I think that a lot of people will be aware of what the issue is, but to try and paint a picture, in the last fortnight, MTM have approached council to offer us the wood that would be left over after trees were removed from Newmarket Railway Station. That precipitated a number of issues for us and for the community, and the main ones being that the trees that were proposed to be removed in order for the MTM to do works on their platforms were trees that fall within an environmentally significant overlay that is part of a heritage overlay that was laid on this area in 2014. A little history lesson. In 2014, MTM approached council, or let council know that it was going to demolish the Pin Oak Street side of that railway station to have some sort of wonderful engineering feat occur to make it more accessible, etc., etc. Council kind of figured at the time that that's like taking the front tooth out of a smile. We have a number of railway stations along there that are all of significance. And at that time, we also began work on identifying what the rest of that whole area looked like, and out of the heritage came the environmental significant overlay. Now, the trees that we're talking about are not just everyday trees. Of course, the one that has become the cause celeb in this is the large river red gum that is there, and it's over 100 odd years old. So we're not talking about just recent additions to the overlay or to the Newmarket area. This tree has outlived 4 generations of people and is able to do it for many, many more. My understanding is that river red gums don't just put down roots and spread them out sideways and cause all sorts of havoc. Their roots go deep, deep down and are looking for water in a very deep way. So the story then is we had a number of conflicting reports, one from MTM, who were rather reluctant to give anything to council when approached and asked what this was all about, and we really had to cajole and work with them very, very hard to get that, and their report from their arborist doesn't necessarily say that the tree is a really bad thing. The overall writing of that report is inconsistent with that, with some of that commentary, and it goes towards why that the trees must be taken out, including a peppercorn, an elm and a number of poplars. Our own arborist reports on the peppercorn and the gum, the river red gum, back in 2018, when we placed them on our significant tree register, suggested that they were both really fine examples of what they were. And in particular, the river red gum was noted as a tree of such significance that it really did form an important part of the whole skyline of Newmarket. The other part that was raised by the report was that it was in really good condition, that it didn't offer any substantial or significant risk to the population, and in fact was not an issue for people who are taking trains. So we've had a number of different views that have been put to us. What council is wanting to do, and what we're seeking support from all of my fellow councillors to do tonight, is we need to work with MTM. They are an authority. We need to bring them to the table. We need to have the solid discussions. We need to formulate the alternatives. We need to work around the issues that they see as absolutely essential to go with, which is the destruction of these wonderful trees, and to work with them about how to do it differently. And all we're asking for is the council to write and do that sort of thing, keep that momentum going, and also there is a Part C, which is to allocate some funding to allow council officers to do some engineering solutions for their retention. This may or may not be money that is necessary, but we need to give the CEO that leverage in order to be able to do that work if in the course of negotiations we have to do something. And I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it for my seconder to pick up the next bit.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor Marshall.
I'm hoping this is the next bit that you contemplated. Look, I will flag, I will talk quickly, but I may request a short extension of time depending on how I go. But
I'll allow 30-second extension.
Very generous. So obviously this is a multifaceted issue that we're dealing with. It's an environmental issue, it's an issue of heritage, it's an issue of neighbourhood character, and it's certainly an issue of community and an issue of process, and that's what, without wanting people's eyes to glaze over, that's what I want to talk about, because that's why we're here fundamentally. Council is involved because, as Councillor Cusack has indicated, the trees around here are subject to a heritage overlay and an ESO, because one of them, the river red gum, it's been identified as a significant tree and a very important significant tree. And anyone who's been through planning scheme amendment processes to get planning controls in place knows just how difficult it is, just what a rigorous process it is to actually get those controls in place. And when you've got those controls in place, our controls say that if you want to do the type of works contemplated, you need to get a permit. So that's essentially why we're here, because our view is that the works of the type contemplated do need a permit, and MTM currently does not have a permit. Now, the reason why MTM is saying that they don't need to get, and sorry, I should say, when I say MTM, I'm meaning Metro, who's the rail operator. They are seeking to rely on an exemption under legislation, which basically says that in certain circumstances, rail operators don't need to get a permit to remove a tree, even if there are planning controls in place. And there are three particular things that have to be satisfied for them to be able to rely on that permit. And the issue that's in question here is the third leg of that, and that's whether the particular tree poses a risk to the safety of anyone on or using the railway track. And it's really interesting. I think most people in the community that I've spoken with have said that they would understand if there is a genuine safety risk here that can't be resolved, then they would understand that the tree has to, or any of the trees have to be removed. I think no one is digging in saying, regardless of any situation, trees must not be removed. People are sensible and they acknowledge that trees are living things, so they have a life cycle, and there are certain things that can happen to damage their health or, sort of destroy their integrity. So people are very reasonable. Everyone I've spoken with about that, and certainly at council, we're very reasonable about that because we at times have to remove trees ourselves, trees that we don't want to, but for which there are very good reasons to remove them. But the difficulty that we have as a council at this stage is that on the information and evidence that's been provided to us by Metro, and including arborist reports, which our council officers have gone through in incredible detail and have had peer reviewed, including our own expert advice that we've sought, there's no evidence to support the ability of Metro to rely on this exemption. And as you look at the actual legislation, and again,
Councillor Marshall, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I am mindful you did ask for an extension of time, but
I won't go on for hours and hours, I promise.
30 seconds. Thanks, Councillor Marshall.
So if you look at the legislation, it's clear when the way it's drafted, it says poses a safety risk. So there's a sense that it must be imminent. It's not anticipating future risks. If you look at the way it's drafted, it defines railway track very clearly to mean the railway track, not more broadly the infrastructure surrounding it, because in the legislation there's a separate definition of that. So to me, this exemption does not contemplate or isn't the circumstances that we have here. It's not a situation where you would reasonably be able to rely on an exemption like this. And it's really important, again, as a council, that we make sure where we have legislation, we have planning controls in place, that they are appropriately enforced, that people comply with them. And certainly here, both in relation to the broader issue of interpretation, but also in relation to the advice we've got about the River Red Gum.
Councillor Marshall.
Here. So if I could I'm mindful, I don't think everyone's going to speak tonight. We've called a special meeting without wanting to be difficult.
I completely understand that.
I've literally got about a paragraph or two to go, so.
I'll give you 30 seconds and that's it.
So where are we timing the 30 seconds from? Because I don't have a 30-second, can we count that down? Is it all right? Thank you. So, sorry, I've lost my track now. So I think too, if I was in Metro's position, I wouldn't want to open a Pandora's box of worms and rely on exemption in this situation, because the reality is the advice we have is that the River Red Gum is at the same risk of dropping limbs as any other tree of the same kind in the same health. So if you follow that through to its logical conclusion, what it means is that they would have to then go around and every River Red Gum that was in similar condition remove, or else they would be the concern about the safety risk. So there's a range of things that concern me about it. We're not being dogged. We are simply saying let's sit down, and we've just received advice that Metro have agreed to meet on Wednesday, which is great. I would like to thank council officers, particularly our CEO, for the work that he has done in this, in very, I suppose, changing circumstances to take things along. So thanks, Mr. Lancaster, it's appreciated. And I'm mindful of the time, so I had more to say, but I will not say it.
Thank you, councillors. I do, just on timing, I do like to be consistent across all meetings. I understand that this is a special meeting, council, but that I do have discretion as a chair. I will allow short extensions. However, I want to be consistent in terms of how I would chair this meeting as how I would chair something with 20 items on the agenda. So, would any other councillor like to speak on tonight's item? Councillor Sorais.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just be very brief because I don't really have a huge amount to say on this. It's great to see a huge amount of community here that are obviously feeling quite upset and distraught about what may or may not be proposed. Thank you, Councillor Marshall and Councillor Cusack, for your input, and I would have liked to have heard a bit more, but anyway, that's how it goes. Yes, Councillor Marshall is correct. We have been advised that there will be negotiations taking place with our CEO, and I'd also like to thank Colin Harris for his input into what has taken place so far. So I think if we can play the role of having some good negotiations and some good outcomes with the Department of Transport and Metro Transit, I think it would be a fantastic opportunity for us, and I think this is where Council will be probably heading in that direction. I understand the community's passion. Nobody likes to see trees go. We have stationeers at Newmarket that are volunteer people that go and maintain and keep the environment around the station in the beautiful state that it's in at the moment. So this council are very passionate as well about, what we can and can't do, and we're going to try and keep it at that level so that we can get the best outcome we can. So I'm glad you're all here, and let's hopefully get a great outcome, and thank you to our CEO and councillors for being on board. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Sorais. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first time I heard about this red gum tree was from a resident who rang me up and asked me, is he allowed to start his chainsaw to come and collect firewood, because the red gum's a very good tree for smoking sausages. And I didn't think anything of it until, and I literally say, as soon as I put the phone down, my phone just started going absolutely crazy. The emails were coming through, and there was a lot of misinformation out there saying, how dare can council make a decision to chop these trees down and all that. And I still wasn't understanding of where all this was coming. So I rang the CEO, I rang my colleagues down in Murnong, and when I got the full explanation to it, I thought there was a lot of misinformation out there. And now that we're broadcasting, I just want to make sure that people understand that this wasn't a council decision to remove these trees. This was an MTM decision. But we are now standing with the community, and we're not going to allow these trees to be chopped down. There are other options. There are other solutions. Just like, and I can only refer back to the misinformation back to the Rosehill ward down in Valley Lakes, where the old site office used to be for selling the land there. That got out into the public saying that council's selling that land off where it should have been converted into a cafe. That was just also complete misinformation. And I just want to reiterate again, this is not a council decision. And this red gum, we will do everything we can in solidarity as this council to keep this tree, keep all the trees as much as we can. I come from an engineering background. Any problem can be engineered. We can engineer this problem out quite easily. There is no need to chop any of these trees down. And I will strongly support Councillor Cusack and Councillor Marshall's recommendation today. And I have full faith in our staff and in the CEO that we will get a positive outcome for the community and for the council and for MTM, that we'll all have a win-win situation out of this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Any other councillor like to speak on this? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity, and the information from our fellow councillors is most enlightening. Certainly the planned meeting gives me some measure of hope in all of this, and that I'm sure is likewise for our community, both in Flemington and other parts of Moonee Valley. The issue of public safety versus removal of a heritage listed 100-year-old tree is really where the whole crux of this argument lies, and the safety risks to the public and commuters of Metro Transport Melbourne. Now, before you bash me over the head with the comments, I'd just like to say that I'm just trying to get my head around the two arguments here. Given the different views of the MTM arborist and the Moonee Valley City Council engaged arborist, there needs to be a meeting, and there already is. I've written this before this actual meeting was planned, but it still points out to the fact that we do have a meeting planned, and it'll bring together the information that we have garnered as a council, as well as what the MTM and Department of Transport have put together, and we'll then be able to find a constructive solution, hopefully, to ensure that both the safety of the station, the train commuters, the general public, and the children that use the playground on the western side of the station will be able to be doing things in a safe and risk-free way. And we don't want this to be turned into a risk for anybody. That's the whole thing here. We don't want unsafe areas around our stations, but we also want to retain our heritage. So it's a two-edged sword, and I'm sure with the great people that we've got in Moonee Valley and with a mindset that hopefully MTM has one that will see a solution coming through, that we will be able to have this in place that will protect the heritage listed River Red Gum. I went around there today at Newmarket Station and I looked at it all. It's a unique, historical, significant location. It's very high up the station, particularly on the eastern side, and it really was built in probably the worst location you could build a station, if I can say that. I'm not begrudging. It's a nice location, and you know, but if it had been built a bit further along towards Ascot Vale on flatter landscape, then probably we wouldn't be having these arguments today. We wouldn't have the problems of you know, the engineering issues that have plagued the station. Anyway, but maybe the option to shifting the platform along the station could be something that is thrown into the ether of discussions. So finally, I agree with the officer's recommendations of working with MTM, and I've got exactly one sentence to go, Madam Mayor, and the allocating of $25,000 to council officers to identify an engineering solution I wholly support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Now, is there any other councillor that would like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Sharp.
I wasn't intending to speak, but I'm not
Don't want to be left
not
out.
to, so I shall. Just like to thank and congratulate the Moonee councillors for taking the lead on this. Obviously, as Councillor Saray said, it's fantastic to see so many people here in the gallery. I can categorically state that Moonee Valley Council is committed to our tree canopy, and we are certainly committed to increasing our tree canopy by 30% to 30% by 2040. So we take any cutting down or removal of any tree very seriously. So I look forward to positive talks happening. I concur with everything else that all my fellow councillors have said. I certainly don't want to repeat anything, so just happy to support Councillor Cusack's and Councillor Marshall's recommendation and look forward to a positive result.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Now, I don't believe there was any dissent, so I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. So that concludes the business on tonight's agenda. Thank you to all of the members of the public that have come in tonight and for the placards that were all very nice and polite and respectful. And thank you for watching on the live streaming, and I now declare this meeting closed. Thank you.